All right. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man walahu wa ba'd. We're going to continue with the introduction to the Hanbali Madhab. As we said, this is a general gloss over the history of the school, its founder, which we did yesterday, or no, the day before yesterday. Yesterday we did the terminology and construction of the madhab, which honestly I think I could have probably edited a little bit better since this is the second time teaching this course. But hey, it is what it is. I think that, as I said yesterday, some of these things really don't make sense unless you're studying them in Arabic. And it's a good, it's good to get information about them. But, it's not the be all end all. If you have any issues with video or audio, please let me know. If you can hear everything, I appreciate it. If not, let me know. Wa alaikum assalam wa salihat. Great to see you here. So today, what are we going to be covering? Today, I think that it's very important to go through chief books in the madhab. And number one, this allows us to kind of take a historical journey through teachers and students and their works to see how those genealogies of knowledge are connected kind of in the descending order. We talked about genealogies of knowledge in the ascending order from Imam Ahmad up to the Prophet ﷺ, and genealogies of knowledge kind of in the descending order. Like, if I read Dalil al-Talib, okay, well, where's, the foolish person says, oh, Mar' ibn Yusuf al-Karmi, and he wrote a book, there's no dalil in it, which is, it sounds silly even just saying that. But when you don't know where scholars are getting things from, then, you can make kind of miscalculated and misinformed statements like that. So today we're going to be covering from Imam Ahmad to AbdulQadir al-Jilani. And yes, there will be some books that maybe were instrumental in historic periods, but we won't cover. I wanted to try to cover those things which are in print, so that if a person says, I'm trying to create a library of Hanbali books, these are the books that I think they should get because they exist in a certain time period and they are available in print. All right, so let's go into it. And I think here, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. All right. Okay, so let's go into it. As we said, this inshallah ta'ala will be 10 parts. I actually think I'm going to add 2 more cases or 2 more parts to this. And we might even take out number 9. And I want to add a section on books of usul al-fiqh, as well as books of qawaid fiqhiyya, and books of i'tiqad, and then the rest of these cases. I think we'll keep these, but I'm not sure. Regardless, let's start from the beginning. So how do we know what the opinions of Imam Ahmad were? Well, they were narrated from him by his students. And some of his students were some of the closest family members to him. Hanbal was his uncle. Salih was his son. Abdullah was his son. So one of the more famous books of Masail or Responsa, right, or issues that were narrated from Imam Ahmad were the Masail of Abdullah. So Abdullah ibn Ahmad, who was born in the year 213 in Baghdad, he learned from his father. He narrated from him extensively. He is the one who narrates the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, the Musnad of his father, to us. He narrates a number of other books, and he has his own narrations like Kitab as-Sunnah, all of which are attested to and accepted books Islamically in general and in the madhab in particular. So Abdullah's Masail, as well as his brother Salih Masail, are very interesting because they record the opinions they are the opinions of Imam Ahmad recorded by the people that lived with him the most. And Abdullah lived with him more than Saleh. Saleh had a family whom he had to support, and therefore took a position and traveled in to support himself. But Abdullah was with him very consistently throughout his life. And as we mentioned, he also narrated the Musnad from him. So if you want to read this book, right, then you can find it on, archive.org. And this print is pretty much, I'm not sure if there's another print, but this is the print that's available. And it's the print that I have in print, like the actual physical copy in my home. All right. So download this and, take a look at it. The other is the Masail of Salih Abu al-Fadl, who was the eldest son of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He was born in 203. He grew up under the care of his father, from whom he acquired knowledge. Later, he became a judge in Isfahan, and he passed away in Isfahan. And so this is why he was not as prominent in his narrations from his father, because he moved away to support his family. Similarly, Salih's Masail are very interesting, because not only was he one of the closest people to his father, one of the great Imams of Islam, but because he was also a judge. He also held a public position, kind of in difference to what his father preferred. But that also gave him certain insight in the questions to ask, which is it's interesting facet. When our Sheikh Muhammad ibn Muhammad al-Mukhtar Shinqiti used to say that try to read the books of al-ulama al-amilin, right? Al-ulama alladhina tawallu al-manasib, al-ulama alladhina kana lahum makana. So, for example, he used to always recommend that we read Al-Hawi by Al-Mawardi, Al-Imam Al-Mawardi in Al-Fiqh Al-Shafi'i. Why? Because Al-Mawardi was a judge. And so the things that he teaches or that he talks about in his book of fiqh is going to be informed from his experiences and not simply the theory that he might be relating from previous generations. So similarly, Salih is one of those kind of people. We have the Masail of Abu Dawood. Abu Dawood, Sulaiman ibn al-Ash'ath, ibn Ishaq, ibn Bashir, ibn Amr, ibn Amran, al-Azdi al-Sijistani, famously known as Abu Dawood. He was born in 202 and he died in 275. So he was around the age of Salih. He was a student of Imam Ahmad, profoundly influenced by him in his methodology of hadith. The importance of Abu Dawood cannot be understated. In his book, The Sunan, has been said, "Man kana fi baytihi sunan Abi Dawood faka'anna fi baytihi nabiyyun yantiq." Whoever has the book Sunan Abu Dawood in his home is as if he has a prophet speaking in his home. So his book was meticulously put together and reflects the hadith methodology of his teacher, Imam Ahmad, and his own hadith methodology. Right? Now, in addition to his Sunan, he narrates a book of Masail from the Imam as well, where he's asking him issues of fiqh. Where can you find Abu Dawood's fiqh? You can find it when you read the chapter titles of his book, as is the norm with Ahl al-Hadith in their expressing their fiqh opinions. Generally comes in the chapter titles of their books, or it comes in notes that come after those hadith, where Al-Imam al-Tirmidhi is probably more prominent in that respect. But Imam Ahmad reviewed, actually, when Abu Dawud wrote the Sunan, Imam Ahmad praised it and approved of it. So he presented it to Ahmad, he praised it, and he approved it. Okay, so this is a very important book to have as well. Now you might be saying, didn't we just talk about yesterday that the madhab was kind of codified by later scholars, and the footwork was done for what the Imam said, what the Imam didn't say, what he intended? Why are you telling us to read all of these early books? Well, I'm telling you to read them for two reasons. Number one, it's very important that you take into consideration the oldest sources that you can in learning about anything. Right? Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen, I heard him with my own two ears, sitting in his majlis in the masjid, when he gave some advice to us students who had went to visit him. He said, عليكم بالعتيق. لا أعني العتيق من الثياب بل العتيق من العلم والعتيق من الكتب فإن كلام المتأخرين كثير وبركته قليلة وكلام كلام المتقدمين قليل وبركته كثيرة. He said you should take to what is ancient or what is old. Do I mean old clothes? No, I mean old knowledge and old books, because the speech of later scholars was much, but had very little blessing, very little barakah, whereas the speech of earlier scholars was few or was little, but had great amounts of blessing. So when you read these books, you get a window into the formation of the madhab. You get a window into how the madhab was expressed. And then you also at times will find issues that are not necessarily reflected in later books of hadith because they weren't particularly relevant, or they were considered to have been in mundarija. They fit under another issue that was mentioned in the book, so the authors didn't seem to mention them. But when you read the context of that, like for example, you'll find in the Masail of Imam Ahmad that people will be coming speaking Persian, and they'll say, what is the ruling on this kada 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 contract, and they use a Persian word, right? And then Imam Ahmad opines on that. So now you have this window into okay, well, here's this contract that was known in society. This name and idea is not reflected in the books of fiqh, but what did they mean by that, and what did he opine? And so you gain a deeper understanding of the social context that's necessary for giving fatwa and for understanding the substantive principles of Islam for real application instead of just theory. So Abu Salihat asks a question. At what stage in the learning process do you recommend that a student go back to these early texts, immediately or after completing a basic metin? I would say complete something like Qaddumi's primer. Okay, complete Qaddumi's primer. The sharh that I did on YouTube is the whole book in 9 sessions. There's a 10th session that was supposed to be Q&A. I got sick after that, was not able to finish the Q&A, but inshallah, hopefully I can go back and finish the Q&A. But finish those 9 sessions, pay attention to the adillah that are used, go back and read those adillah in their context. And then, I think that it's very important for a person to continuously read at all different levels. One of the mistakes that beginning students make is they think, well, I'll never be able to handle al-Mughni, so I won't read it. I'm not of that level. In working out, you always set your 1 rep max, right? You always set like, this is the heaviest thing that I can do, right? I'm not going to do it all the time, but if I do it, and then I go back to the light weights and I'm working out consistently, and then in a month or 2, I go back to that heavy thing and it seems easier, I know I've made progress. There's an article that I've written about learning Arabic called Eat Your Dictionary. It's on my website. And I think that people need to do the same with learning the language. You need to be reading advanced texts. Like I love Maqamat al-Hamadani and Maqamat al-Hariri and Adab al-Katib. And all of these are considered, Diwan al-Hudaliyin. I love it. Diwan al-Farazdaq, my favorite. All of these people go, why are you reading that? Shawqi Laif has a series on adab across centuries. Al-Adab al-Jahili, the volume on Al-Adab al-Jahili is very good. That's very advanced. Why would you read that? Well, you read it because this lets you know kind of what you're striving for, but you have to have the requisite to humility to say, I might not understand what's in this book, and I need to have the humility to say I'm going to read it and appreciate it, but I'm not going to put myself in this position of a scholar who's going to explain it and say what It is inside out, because I'm actually over here on kind of level 2 and 3. I'm not on level 10, but I know what level 10 is, and I'm working towards that. And then I'm going to be, and then I have books on level 5 in the middle. So to summarize, read books that are heavy lifting, read books that are medium lifting, and read books that are light lifting. In Arabic, read children's books, and then read books at your learning level, and then read books above your learning level. Similarly, with books of fiqh, I think it's very important to continuously go back, like Qaddumi, go back and read it again. I've studied that before. You studied it, but do you really know it? You've studied it, but if I asked you a question from it, would you be able to answer? No. Well, then knowledge has to be consistently repeated, right? And one of the things that I've been working on, inshallah ta'ala will announce soon, is there's a group of small texts that's going to come out for the beginning learner to kind of get their vocabulary and the basic sciences kind of all they're kind of a springboard for getting into Islamic study. So at Zidni Institute, led by Sheikh Ahmad Khatir, Jazallah khair, I mean, amazing scholar and person all around, and I think it's a unique service, the Taqrib program, right, where we're covering major texts for people to do. I know from my own studies, though, that there needs to be a bit of a springboard before that, and so these 5 or 6 books, these small books that can be finished, is going to be for that, right? So back to Jazakallah khair for the question. Back to the Masail of Imam Ahmad. Read these because it gives you an appreciation for the Imam. You might not understand the issue, but you can understand the fact that, well, in Masail al-Kawsaj, which I think is the next one, right? Yeah, Masail al-Kawsaj is the next one. Imam Ahmad is sitting with Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, and they're both being asked the same question, and sometimes they're answering in different ways and disagreeing with each other. And you learn that scholars can disagree with each other while they're together and still be cordial and friends with each other. Or when one of them answers and the other one agrees, he just simply says, mithlu ma qal, just like he said. Doesn't have to go, not everybody has to give their input all the time because you agree with whatever has been said. So there's a lot of adab that's learned from these books as well. And if you're looking for a print of this one, of Masail Abi Dawood, then the best copy is the tahqiq of our Sheikh Abu Mu'adh Tariq Awadallah, Hafidhahullah, who is, I think one of the hidden gems of North America. A lot of people don't know that he is present here in North America, and someone who should definitely be taken benefit from. Okay, so let's go to the next one, which is the Masail al-Kawsaj. So Abu Yaqub al-Kawsaj, Ishaq ibn Mansur al-Kawsaj, he was born in the city of Maru, and he was raised in Nishapur. And he was born in the year 170. He died there in 251. He's considered one of the imams amongst the companions of the hadith, and he was known for his asceticism, his zuhud, and his adherence, tamassukuhu bis sunnah, his adherence to the sunnah. And this copy here is one of the copies that was done in Al-Jami' Islamiyya. So it's a very good copy as well. And there's another copy as well out there from another publisher. I'm not recalling which one. Al-Hakim, yes, that Al-Hakim, the famous scholar of hadith, he said, describing Al-Kawsaj, he's the author of the questions posed to Ahmad ibn Hanbal, which are often mocked by innovators and the audacious. Notice, because of Al-Kawsaj's adherence to the Sunnah, the people of Bid'ah would mock him, and they would sometimes even mock the works that he had. Why would they mock him? Well, he explains. I heard Abu al-Walid Hassan ibn Muhammad al-Faqih say, I heard our teachers mention that Ishaq ibn Mansur had heard that Ahmad ibn Hanbal had retracted some of the questions he had related from him. So what was happening was Al-Kawsaj was teaching from what he had heard from Ahmad. And then people were saying, you went and asked him all these questions and he retracted everything that he said, as if there was a problem with him. So what did he do? He said Therefore, he packed them in a sack, carried it on his back, and he traveled on foot to Baghdad. He presented Ahmad's writings to him for every question he had asked him about, and Ahmad affirmed them again for him and was impressed by him. So what did he do when it was time to set things straight? Did he get into an ideological battle with the people that were bid'ah? No, he just simply went and reaffirmed all of the knowledge that he had had from the Imam and continued teaching it. So this is printed in 2 volumes, and it has the questions that he asked both Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Ishaq ibn Rahoya, and so therefore it is of immense benefit. Now, there are many other books of Masail, and you will find some of those books of Masail printed, and they are narrated from the Imam directly. And you will have some where they are like reconstituted books of Masail. Like the Masail of Al-Muhanna al-Shami is Al-Muhanna al-Shami, his narrations are mentioned in later books. But his Masail, unless it's been found, were not discovered, were lost, or they were found in part in later books. So Sheikh Ismail Marhaba of Lebanon went and reconstituted that book. He gathered all the Masail of Al-Muhanna and he did analysis of them, and I believe that was his master's thesis. His doctor's thesis was about human donation banks, like blood banks, milk banks, all that kind of stuff. And he was a beautiful person and a friend of mine when I was in Medina. So there are all of these students of Imam Ahmad who all were narrating these riwayat from him, right? And so you've got like 20 different students, 25 different students. Everybody's saying, hey, I met Imam Ahmad when he was in Baghdad, and I met him when he was in Basra and Mecca and wherever he was, right? And I asked him these questions. So Abu Bakr al-Khallal, who died in the year 311, Abu Bakr Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Harun ibn Yazid al-Baghdadi. He was nicknamed al-Khallal. He was a virtuous person. He was extremely knowledgeable faqih. He was a scholar of hadith, and he was considered the sheikh of the Hanabila at their time. What he did was he went and he gathered all of these books from Imam Ahmad's students. Okay, so Khallal traveled to Persia, the Levant, and Al Jazeera. Where is Al Jazeera? Al Jazeera is found in modern day Iraq. In search of the jurisprudence, fatwas, and responses of Imam Ahmad. Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi mentioned in Tarikh Baghdad, Al-Khallal compiled the sciences of Ahmad, sought them out, traveled for them, wrote them down, and arranged them into books. No one had gathered them more comprehensively than he did. So he went and he found everything that had been related from Ahmad, and he put it all in one book, and he called it Jami' al-Riwayat. Jami' al-Riwayat. Al-Dhahabi, he said about him, he gathered and preserved knowledge extensively. Before him, Imam Ahmad's school was not independently established until Al-Khallal came along. He followed up on Ahmad's texts, documented them, and elucidated them after the year 300. May Allah have mercy on him. So the book here is not from that. It's not from Jami' al-Riwayat, right? But this is another book that has survived from Al-Khallal's works called Al-Hath al-Tijara wal-Sina'ati wal-Amal, the encouragement to do business and manufacturing and work, right? But I put this here so that you get an idea of his writing style. But his, Jami' al-Riwayat, I'm not even sure if it's been found in part, but it's an extremely important book, and it was preserved in part by Abu Bakr, by Ghulam Khallal. Abu Bakr Abdul Aziz ibn Ja'far ibn Ahmad ibn Yazdad al-Baghawi, famously known as Ghulam al-Khallal, the servant of al-Khallal. He was titled this because he was one of Abu Bakr al-Khallal's students, and he was with him so consistently that people used to think that he was his servant, like his porter or servant boy. So he was a commentator, a hadith narrator. He's considered trustworthy. He was born in the year 285. Al-Imam al-Dhahabi said, no one like Al-Khalal came after the companions of Ahmad, and after Al-Khalal, no one like Abdul Aziz came, unless it was Abul Qasim al-Khiraqi. So what's the importance of this book? And this book was printed, and it is printed in 4 or 5 volumes by Abu Jannah al-Hanbali, Mustafa ibn Muhammad Salah ad-Din, and who is a prolific muhaqqiq of the Hanbali Turath, the Hanbali heritage. And he has a number of books that will be coming out, and I think a number of books that we printed for the first time. This was printed for the first time, and it is complete. It contains 5,204 narrations from Imam Ahmad, most not having been related to us expressly, in addition to many texts from the Salaf which were used by Imam Ahmad as evidence. So it not only contains the preferred positions of the Imam, but also the preferred positions of Abu Bakr al-Khalal. So we'll say Imam Ahmad said this, or the narrations from Imam Ahmad said da, 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 and this was Abu Bakr al-Khalal's choice amongst them. And this book was a source for Abu Ya'la in his own books. So it's an extremely important book, and one that I would love to just kind of do a tajreed of, just kind of like sit and read through together, and maybe we can all do that together, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Next up comes Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi. Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi, which I had mentioned to you all the other day, essentially was, al-Khiraqi, Abul Qasim Umar ibn Hussein ibn Abdullah ibn Ahmad al-Khiraqi. He died in the year 334. He studied under his father Abu Bakr al-Marwazi, also Harb al-Kirmani, Salih, and Abdullah, the sons of Imam Ahmad. So Harb al-Kirmani, Abu Bakr al-Marwazi, Salih, and Abdullah. He studied under 4 of the direct students of Imam Ahmad. A group of scholars from the Hanbali school, like Abdullah ibn Battah, Abu al-Hussein al-Tamimi, and Abu al-Hussein ibn Sam'un, read under him. Those are his students. So this book is considered to be the first abridgment of the Hanbali school, where the opinions of the Imam were essentialized into a metin, a text style, without evidence, and according to one riwayah of the Madhab. And this is the most extensively serviced book in the Madhab. If you've heard of Al-Mughni is an explanation of this book, right? So this is an extremely important book, and as we said, he kind of wrote it in the same way as Al-Muzani wrote his Mukhtasar for Shafi'i fiqh. Okay, here we're coming down a level, okay, and we're getting to Abu Abdullah al-Baghdadi ibn Hamid in Tahdhib al-Ajwiba. He was one of the leading scholars of the Hanabila of his time. He died in the year 403, and he used to copy books and earn a living from their fees. So that's a very important point. Like, some people think, oh, you're making money off of knowledge. Some people are teaching for free, but when you want them to copy the book for you, then they're going to have you pay, because that's work, right? So there was a difference amongst the person, amongst the Salaf, of the person who charged money for tahdith or money for knowledge, right? Meaning, I'm not going to teach you unless you pay me, or I'm not going to narrate a hadith to you unless you pay me, versus the person who says, I'll narrate to you, but if you want me to get paper and pen and write it down for you and copy it for you, then that's going to cost money. So al-warraq, if you ever see people with the appellation or the attribution al-warraq, right, the copyist, it was because that was their job. People would bring books to them, and they would copy them for them. So Ibn Hamid used to live off the earning from the fees that he would earn from being a copyist. The Khalifa of his time sent him a gift, and he returned it, wanting to maintain his dignity despite him needing some of it. So he stayed on that Hanbali norm of not trying to get close to the Sultan. He narrates from Abu Bakr al-Qati'i. So Abu Bakr al-Qati'i, so you have Ibn Hamid narrates from Abu Bakr al-Qati'i. Abu Bakr al-Qati'i narrates from Abdullah ibn Ahmad. Abdullah ibn Ahmad narrates from his father. Right? He wrote a Sharh of Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi, and one of his main students is Abu Ya'la. So this is one of the oldest books in the Madhab. And while other authors usually begin their books explaining the terms they or the Imam used, Ibn Hamid attempts to explain the phrases used by Imam Ahmad in his responsa in context. So it's a very unique book, and it is printed. And again, it is one of the prints from Al-Jami' Islamiyya in 2 volumes, and is a very valuable book, and you can find the PDF on Al-Waqfiyya. Okay, so the next book is by Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la, also known as Ibn al-Farra. He was born in 380 and he died in 458. He learned Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi as a child, and he studied fiqh with Ibn Hamid for years. His son, Ibn Abi Ya'la, whose full name is Abu Hussein Muhammad, was a historian and a jurist amongst the Hanabila. So why is there 2 books here on the top? So the book in green is المسائل الفقهية من كتاب الروايتين والوجهين للقاضي أبي يعلى. The fiqh issues from the book, 2 narrations and 2 facets from Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la. And the tahqiq was AbdulQadir al-Lahim who did this. Now, one of the bad things that happened when this book was first printed was that they took Kitab al-Riwayatayn wal-Wajhayn, has a section on fiqh, a section on usul, a section on aqidah. And so if you wanted to get the whole book, you had to buy 3 separate prints. Luckily, who I mentioned before, Abu Jannah, is reprinting the book in its entirety, along with this book, Kitab al-Tamam. So Kitab al-Tamam, لما صح في الروايتين والثلاث والأربع عن الإمام. The book of perfection, about what is authentic from 2 narrations, 3, 4 from the Imam, as well as the select facets from his companions. Okay, so this is a father and son duo, and both of these books are going to be printed together in one print. It's kind of like one, to buy all at once. And the good thing about this book is that it essentializes the opinions of the Imam, and mentions, indicates their adillah. And it is broader than just fiqh. So it narrates aqidah and it narrates usul from the Imam as well, which is very important. Okay, the next from Abu al-Khattab al-Kalwadani, Mahfuz ibn Ahmad ibn Hassan al-Iraqi al-Kalwadani al-Azji al-Baghdadi. He was born in 432 and he died in 510. He was a leading scholar of the Hanbali school at his time, and a student of Abu Ya'la. And he wrote Al-Hidayah. And if you go back to what we said yesterday, he's one of those people whose opinion is taken. So whatever he expresses in this book is considered to be the official position. So this is a rather large volume. It is printed from Ghiras, which is a Kuwaiti printing house. The author takes the methodology of a mujtahid. He parses the opinions of the school. He says which ones are most proximate to Imam Ahmad's most official positions. He mentions the opinions of the school, the riwayat that relate to that, and then which one was his choice opinion. And when he says Shaykhuna, he's talking about Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la. So again, in the early development of the madhab, this is a very important book. Now, another book from Abu al-Khattab al-Kalwadani is called Al-Ibadat al-Khams. I didn't mention it here because it's a small book, but it is considered to be the first book written only on the 5 acts of worship in Islam. And it was considered, a beginner's text. It's been printed 2 times. It's been printed once with the Sharh al-Ba'qubi from a singular manuscript that I want to say was from the Babtain library in Saudi Arabia, but I might be mistaken, or the private library of one of the ulama al-Qasim. And then the other is is the book itself, printed, I think, from two manuscripts by, and it might be from Ghiras as well, from the Kuwaiti. It's from a Kuwaiti publishing house, but I'm not sure if it's Ghiras or someone else. But it's a smaller book, but you can tell, the kind of nafas al-mu'allaf fihima is the same. He has the same spirit in both of the books. But I think it's interesting that Al-Kalwadani, who died 510, he's like, okay, let me write like a more pedagogical text for teaching just al-ibadat al-khams, right? It suffers a little bit, al-ibadat al-khams suffers a little bit from the norm of Hanbali books, especially in ibadat, with some of the superfluous masail that come up in the area of like water. But regardless, it is a beneficial book. And this book, Al-Hidayah, is considered to be, one of the official books for what the madhab is. So it's a very important book to get if you can. Okay. Lastly, okay, so here we were at 432 to 510. And then lastly, we get to the year 470 to 561. AbdulQadir al-Jilani. AbdulQadir al-Jilani, rahmatullahi alayh, also al-Kilani. And in fact, I believe it's not a ja or a ka. I believe in his, original language, it's al-Gilani. So it's not a gha, it's not a ghain, it's more of a English G. It's like the kaf with two things over it, and linguists can correct me if I'm wrong. But he was born in 470 and he died in 561. His full name was Abu Muhammad AbdulQadir ibn Musa ibn Abdullah al-Hasani al-Hashimi. He was a Sufi and a Hanbali jurist. He studied jurisprudence with Abu al-Wafa ibn Aqil, Abu al-Khattab al-Kalwadani, the judge Abu al-Husayn ibn al-Farra, right, al-Qadi Abu al-Farra, and Abu Sa'id al-Mukharrami. And this book is extremely beneficial. It's 3 volumes, and it covers 3 fields of knowledge. So it starts with fiqh, and focuses on acts of worship, followed by beliefs, and then Islamic sects. And then it delves into issues of Islamic ethics and manners, and a section on like valuable sermons and wa'adh. His methodology in the book is that he typically starts with an explanation and evidence from the Quran, followed by a hadith, then accounts from the companions, then accounts from the righteous people, and then the opinions of the madhab and some of his own opinions. So there's debate, there's discussion, there's refutation of different, deviant sects. And it's a very prominent feature of the book. So it's al-ghunya li talibi tariq al-haq. It's the sufficiency for people, looking for the path of truth. And if fascinatingly enough, it is in immediately after his death, the book is not as in vogue, and then it becomes in vogue later on in the 7th and the 8th century, and then after that, it's his opinions are relied upon a little bit more. We'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, when we get to, I want to say Ibn Muflih or al-Mardawi, Ibn Muflih, I believe. So anyway, he was renowned for his debates with people like the Mu'tazila and the Murji'ah and the Khawarij and the Shia and the Karramiyya, as well as the Falasifa. And he was a deeply spiritual person, and he is considered one of the greatest scholars of Islam and one of the greatest scholars of the Hanbali madhab. In fact, there's somewhat of a interesting statement that he makes about the awliya of Allah, that there isn't a single awliya, single wali, except that he's a Hanbali. So he's an enigmatic and interesting figure in Islamic history, and someone who, because of his deep piety and karamat, many false things were attributed to him later on, and that's why people become very surprised when they hear, what, AbdulQadir al-Jilani is a Hanbali? How can that be? That doesn't sound right, because they associate the idea of being Jilani with people that do bid'ah, and that's unfortunate. He has a number of other works other than Al-Ghunya, which are very beneficial, some of which have even been explained by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. And if my memory serves me correctly, some of his descendants have created a waqf in Turkey, which preserves his writings and prints them, and they're given out for free. I have maybe one or two prints from that place, but I just don't remember what it's called at this time. But yeah, you can download this, and this was actually translated into English by Muhtar Holland, rahimahullah, one of the prolific early translators of English works. I don't know much about Muhtar Holland, but he translated like all of Umdat al-Fiqh, all of Al-Ghunya, and a number of other works. They used to be sold at Maktabat Baz in Mecca, in the Shamiyah. So you used to leave the Haram from the area where you would fill Zamzam, going out, I think going out Bab al-Umrah, and then going up the hill in a Shamiyah, and then the bookstores were on the right-hand side. I have a lot of fond memories of going to those bookstores. All of that's gone now. That's all part of the Haram. It's all been the whole neighborhood has been subsumed by the masjid. But yeah, it was one of those places where you could get rare books that were reprinted. You could get books that weren't printed by many people, and they really weren't trying to do. They really were trying to make money off of the books. They were just trying to spread knowledge. And then they had like they used to sell Muhtar Holland's books as well, which was quite interesting. And you can find those. You can find the translation or the PDF of this online. So it's a very, very interesting book. So this kind of ends this epoch of the Hanbali Madhab at 561. And when we open the door next time, okay, which would be when we talk about the Maqadisa and we talk about Al-Taymiyyah, we're going to kind of see the effects of the students of AbdulQadir al-Jilani in the Levant, in Bayt al-Maqdis, and Syria, and the kind of spread of the madhab and the prolific writings that they come up with at that time. So that's it for what I have to present to you today, and I hope that it was beneficial. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll have 2 more of these sessions where we're just covering books of the madhab. And for those of you who are on the school platform, I will try to make the slides available so that you can have the links and download the books. You can get the quick, or you just watch the video and search the book. But for those of you that are in the school platform, I'll try to make that available, inshallah ta'ala. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Sharif, barakallahu feek. Thank you so much. Rashid, barakallahu feek. I appreciate you coming out. If you have any questions, I'll leave everything on for a moment, and then we can wrap up if there are no questions. Abdurrahman, mashallah. Abdurrahman, aina ant? Dalina, jazakallah khair, and I appreciate you coming out. Abdurrahman is one of those people that read Qadumi to me a very long time ago. What's the best way to learn Arabic in the States? The best way to learn Arabic is, nowadays, I think, get on an app like italki or one of those other apps and find a qualified tutor and have them tutor you in Arabic. I think that's one of the easiest ways to jumpstart your Arabic study, is to just study with a tutor. When I was learning Arabic, I learned in Islamic Sunday school. I was given a Hansware dictionary, and the Imam taught me how to do Tasrif al-Af'al from Al-Izzi. And I memorized a bunch of verb forms that were kind of typical for, madrasa in Pakistan. And then I mixed with brothers that were speaking Arabic. It was a long, arduous, kind of uncalculated, not stable process. Now that there are a number of Arabic curricula that are available online. There are a number of tutors that are available online. So I recommend finding a tutor, sticking with them, and then also not jumping between material. Don't go, oh, I'm going to start the Medina books, and then you start, somebody else is doing the books from Arabiya Bayni Yadayk. I'm going to do that, and then you go and do that, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to do instead. I'm going to do like the Fajr program, or Mahad Nur, or somebody else has this, XYZ program. I'm going to do that, and then you've done 5 minutes of 10 different programs. You didn't even get a whole hour in. Suhba Institute here in Houston as well. They have an online and an in-person Arabic program, which I highly recommend. I think that it is a very good program because the teachers themselves have studied at a number of different programs and kind of amalgamated all of the experiences there. So I think that's important. Jazakallah khair for the question. For Hanbali text, which method do you recommend? Right now I'm going over Akhsar al-Mukhtasarat, but do not know what to study yet next. So I have 10 lectures here, right on the slide. One of the slides that I'm going to add is Turuq al-Tafaqquh. So the ways to study Hanbali, the Hanbali school. And so we'll talk about kind of the different ways, inshallah ta'ala. But great question, Delina. Just expect that in the coming weeks. So we'll cover that. Okay, Abu Salihati asks, is there a reason why Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi was so widely accepted as opposed to Ghulam al-Khalaz al-Musafir? Yes, it was size. Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi is very Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi is very Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi is very compressed. It is a Mukhtasar, it is a summary. Whereas Zad al-Musafir has the fiqh opinion, it has narrations, it has the author's opinions, his teacher's opinions. So it was much more sizable than it was much more sizable than Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi. So when we see Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi printed, it's like like a thick volume. But in reality, if you're like handwriting it on some paper, it's actually not going to be that long, right? So you got to think about even like materially, like what can somebody easily write down and keep with them. Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi was, because of its condensed size, was easier to be related as well. All right, everyone. Barakallahu feekum. And I will see you inshallah ta'ala. So we won't have anything tomorrow. Tomorrow's Jum'ah. We will meet again on Monday night, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.